You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, I get to start us off this week, and I want us to just think for a minute. Just like go into our brains and imagine that we're walking around in a forest. As we do, we're naturalists, tend to walk through forests all the time.
Mm-hmm. Did it this morning.
Yep, same.
Got it.
You're just enjoying the space, being in nature. You're listening to the birds. Maybe some frogs are
so
calling. You're walking through the woods. Maybe you're hanging out with a naturalist, so you're not going to go very far without being stopped. We're like dogs. We stop every
This
3
is correct.
feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you notice something kind of odd by a rotting tree stump. It's just,
Okay.
there's lots of odd things that can be.
Let's investigate.
Yeah, let's investigate it. There's lots of odd things that you can find out in the woods. But this is kind of, you want to be mistaken because, I mean, this has been a very pleasant walk in the woods, but sometimes, there's also the other connotation of woods and forests, and that's the horror kind. Okay.
Oh, the dark and scary woods.
Right, the dark and scary woods.
Okay, yeah.
You did not tell us it
Cabin
was
in
that
the
kind of
woods.
woods
Right.
when we walked into it, Rachel. I'm feeling a little misled by my guide.
I mean, fair. To be fair, it is still those lovely, nice woods. You just happen to notice something kind of odd by this
Is it
rotting
something
tree
disturbing?
stump. Yes. So you go closer because we got to investigate it, right?
Okay.
And it looks, well, it looks like rotting fingers are pushing their way out of the soil.
Yeah.
That's where I thought this
I
was
saw
going.
your
So it
little
looks
gesture, Kirk.
like
Kirk had waved his
a
fingers.
hand is coming up out of the ground, like a zombie, perhaps.
Potentially, maybe it is a zombie. It is not a zombie.
Is there a dead body in the ground, Rachel?
There's no. You can't prove anything. Today I'm talking about dead man's fingers, which is a fungus.
Yes.
Aha.
It is
Best fungus name ever.
It's so good. It's so on the nose. It's beautiful. Its Latin name or scientific name is Zalaria polymorpha. It's probably the smoothest Latin name I've ever done.
Indeed.
Now,
Well done.
Nice.
thank you. Now this fungus is primarily found on rotting wood bodies, so like a rotting tree stump, or it's near injured trees, any kind of wooden stuff that is dying or dead that's connected to the soil. Like it can even be found in mulch sometimes.
Okay, makes sense.
Which is pretty fun. Young dead men's fingers, when they first emerge through the soil.
That sounds so much worse, Rachel.
It does.
Young dead men's fingers.
You
don't mean
I'm
the
about
fingers
to
of a young man who's dead. Again, you mean a young dead
Dead
man
man's
fingers
fungus. Yes.
Okay, good clarification.
Well, so they tend to be paler when they first come up.
Uh-huh.
With kind of bluer tips.
Wonderful. Go on.
And as this fungus matures, the fingers blacken.
Yeah.
they can be found all year round, but generally they're best found from anywhere from June to October. And they just kind of, as they blacken, they resemble more and more rotting fingers. Some of the ones, because what happens is, I'm looking at my hand with fingers right now. So these are the fruiting bodies of this particular fungus. And what happens is, when they raise up through the soil, they are very much little club-like, they look like fingers coming up through the soil. There's no better description of them. They can grow anywhere from a half inch to 3 inches in height. And they can be as much as about like...
That checks out?
Yeah, we're all looking at our fingers. They could be about anywhere from a 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch in width.
Again,
or I guess diameter. Makes sense, right?
Almost like fingers.
Almost like fingers.
Of a corpse.
Which is definitely where they got their name.
You
don't say.
Yeah, I do say.
This is just in breaking news. Age-old mystery solved with the name of Dead Man's Fingers.
They look like Dead Man's Fingers. So when they are younger, especially earlier in the season, they often have like this whitish substance over them that can actually make it look like a nail. And that's actually the spores coming out from a little hole on the top and kind of just hanging out on the side until wind whisks the spores away for them to spread out into the forest.
Create more dead fingers? Yeah.
To create more dead fingers. And those spores can be released anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. So as long as they're spores, they will be released pretty much continuously as long as that fruiting body is above the ground. They are pretty important. So as gross as they look, and as gross or cool, depending on your leaning, I guess. They are actually very important. They are I believe, no, not. It's not sapphic.
Saprophyte?
They're saprophytic.
Saprophytic?
Yes. There we go. So they are saprophytic, and that pretty much means they're feeding on the dead wood. They're turning that dead dying wood into soil. Most of the fungus is actually beneath the soil in the mycelium, and it is disintegrating and decomposing the wood into soil and returning it and all of its nutrients back into the ecosystem is very important.
Yay!
So even though it's weird looking, it's doing a very important job. That's pretty much what I have for you both today. I just wanted to talk about Dead Man's Fingers.
Why not?
Gotcha. I think in horror movies and such, it's always like in a graveyard, the hand starts coming up out of the soil to grab your ankle.
What if it was the fungus?
Was there anything more disturbing? Like would a dead man's foot sticking out of the ground seem worse?
Obviously, can grab you though. Yeah.
It doesn't. I think a face would be rather disturbing.
Ooh.
But that seems a bit much to be asking of my
for you. That is so...
It is the reaching, you know.
And
although you're in the dark and little hands are grabbing you. And
points wise, it's a lot easier to have narrow fingers and such go through the soil than to push your head.
Well, okay, I'm just sort of thinking outside the box here, but yes.
I think if it's to the point of that, they have already escaped the box.
I have seen some fungus that looks just like an ear, like a severed ear. That's pretty disturbing.
Horrifying.
Nature's horrifying, children. Let's go look at it.
Yeah, let's have fun.
I feel like we've wandered far from the topic.
Well, we're way off the trail now. I've also seen more commonly than I've seen dead man's fingers is what are called fairy fingers. Have you seen these?
Yep.
They're like the same thing, but they're little teeny tiny ones, like maybe an inch tall and very tiny. And I've seen those growing in like, especially like wood chips.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's where if you grind up a tree, you guys, that has fairies in it.
Kirk, no.
And then you put that mulch. That's where fairy fingers come from, is when you accidentally grind up fairies.
Kirk, there are children listening to this show. I think
I'm so sad for
horrified.
them.
Well, just be careful what you mulch with, That's all I'm saying.
Children, the fairies are fine as long as you believe in them.
That's true. See, they come back.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's all I have
Speaking
for
of
you
coming
both.
back.
That's all I have for you both today. We're going to take a quick break, probably get back on track ourselves. And when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Strange by Nature podcast is brought to you by listeners like you who have joined the Society of Strange, our membership group on over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Society of Strange members can join at one of 3 different membership levels and help support the show, and also get some fun stuff like water bottle stickers or access to super secret content. So a thank you to those who have joined already to help make this podcast possible. If you haven't joined yet, we'll see you soon over at the Society of Strange at patreon.com/strangebynature. See you soon.
Hey, we're back. So, depending on where you grew up, there are certain insect pests that you become more or less familiar with.
True.
Myself, having grown up in an apartment building in New York City, I have a major horror of cockroaches.
Cockroaches.
Yeah. Which can grow quite large there, up to a couple inches. It's really horrifying. And they crawl through the pipes and the vents and all that stuff.
Cross your face at night.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but we did buy a lot of roach motels and place them at various locations.
This is turning into a bang-up episode.
Yeah.
I'm shuddering so much.
But, I'm actually not going to talk about cockroaches for the most part.
Okay.
My relatives all lived in other parts of the country and dealt with different problem insects. So I have an uncle who lives in California, and I remember hearing about his expensive troubles with termites eating away at the beams of his house. And he, flash forward, he eventually moved into a new development that has steel-framed houses for this very reason.
Wow, yeah.
They would never have to deal with termites again.
Termites are the worst.
Yeah. And, I would visit my grandparents in Texas, and one of the local landmarks in Austin where they lived was this pest control company, Terminix, that had this huge sort of 1950s vintage statue of what I guess was maybe a winged termite on top of its roadside sign.
Horrifying.
Yeah. What I did not learn until much later was that not all termites are pests, and that they have some really amazing things that they do with building. They have the coolest architecture in the animal kingdom.
They do.
Yes.
Oh.
So I want to talk about termites because they are so amazing. Termites are eusocial insects, so that means they live in colonies similar to the way that some ants, bees, and wasps do. But common misconception, which I also had for a while, they are not, in fact, closely related to ants, bees, or wasps. So they're not in order Hymenoptera. They are actually currently placed in the same order as cockroaches.
Of course.
Latadia. Yeah.
Sure.
That's the last time I'm going to mention cockroaches. But they eat mostly dead plant material, which in the case of, my uncle's house, that was wood. But it could also be leaves. This is obviously problematic in urban areas, but there are lots of species that don't, in fact, interact much with humans in their buildings. And termites, the termites I want to talk about today, make their own buildings. So all termites have nests, most of which are ground-based, but there are some species that build these giant mounds that also protrude from the surface of the earth. And
right.
Probably
like a chimney kind of, right?
Yeah, you've probably seen pictures of these. Some of them can be quite tall and thin. Some of them are more like a mound of dirt. but the largest are up to 12 meters high.
Whoa.
So that's
Wait, full stop.
yeah.
Hold on.
That's like 40 feet.
12 meters?
Oh, that's like almost 8 Rachels.
This,
oh my
this
God.
is what now most of them
That's
are not that high,
unbelievable.
but it is apparently.
Insane.
And some of them can be 30 meters in diameter. So it's like 100 feet. More or less.
What?
But
What?
hold on.
What?
So 30 feet across?
No, so I don't think the one that's 12 meters high is 30 meters across. These are
I'm
separate
picturing like this is one big one.
No.
I'm like
That's
30
a
meters
city,
across. I'm like,
is what that is.
oh my! I'm like,
So
this
they're
is
like the
just
tall, skinny ones and the shorter, wider ones, I think.
Oh, I thought this was
Okay.
all one you were describing.
No.
I'm like, I mean, I knew they got big, but shut the front door. That is just absolutely amazing.
I mean,
so
it's
different
still pretty
species, different species do build mounds of different shapes and sizes.
Cool. Okay.
And mound building species live in Africa, Asia, Australia, and South America, but not North America, which is why we're not as familiar with them here.
Right.
And these mounds can be incredibly complex and also last for a very long time. But, what I find most interesting about them and that I wanted to talk about particularly is that they have extremely sophisticated ventilation systems. So when I said that they have the coolest architecture in the animal kingdom.
That was
Literally.
a pun.
That was a pun, very much intended. Yes.
Oh, very, very punny.
Nice. I like it.
So scientists believe that the purpose of those towering spire-like mounds is cooling. Now, it used to be thought so that's what the belief has been for a long time. It used to be thought that somehow they improved the airflow in the tunnels by kind of capturing or funneling the wind. But it turns out to be much cooler than that.
Oh, jeez.
So recently, biologists were able to use thermal imaging cameras and to put tiny airflow sensors in lots of different tunnels in the mounds of one species, an Asian species called Odontotermes obesus.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Rolls right off the tongue.
To figure out what was really going on inside this mound. And it turns out that these mounds of this species, but also other species of termites kind of work on the same principle. They have a large central shaft, and then lots of smaller tunnels that kind of lace the walls of the mound. So if you think about a volcano shape, and there's the big open space in the center, but then there's
tube.
Tube in the center, and then there's lots of nooks and crannies in the walls of the volcano.
Passageways to get in more lava.
Yes. So in the morning, the sun starts striking the outside of the mound and heats up the air in the small outer tunnels, which rises naturally. And because they're linked to the central shaft, it sets up a convection cell. So that warm air on the outside rises and the cooler air in the center sinks.
Okay.
It's more insulated.
Wow.
And so then at night, the process reverses. After the sun goes down, the air in the small tunnels on the outside of the mound starts to cool down faster and starts to sink, causing the convection cell to reverse and the warmer air to go up the central air shaft to escape the mound. And bringing with it all the built up carbon dioxide from within the nest, from the termites breathing out all day.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly ingenious.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to think that these apparently mindless small insects who, they're
have
just
a little bundle of neurons, maybe.
Yeah. That they're able to build this kind of system. And you can also imagine that it's a very inspiring idea to architects who are looking for ways to cool buildings using less energy.
Right.
And in fact, there is a well-known building in Harare, Zimbabwe, where the architect is named Mick Pierce, was inspired by termite mounds. And although not all of the science that I just went over was known at the time that the building was built in the 1990s, Pierce basically intuited that this must in fact be the way the mounds worked, essentially. And he designed the building on similar principles inspired by termite mounds. And so when the building is operating using only this passive cooling, no air conditioning system, it uses only 10% of the energy of a similar conventional building.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
I was in a home someone had built that did a kind of similar thing where they had like tubes underground that then came up through the walls of the house, and they had like a fan they could turn on that would blow air, like take air in and pull it underground where it was cooler and then blow it up into the house. It was a very simple, not quite passive system, I don't think, but it did a similar kind of thing where it was just cycling cooler air to the other spots, and it's very interesting.
Actually, now that you mention it, I just remembered this. Back when I lived in Washington, D.C., I knew somebody who lived in an apartment building that was built, I want to say maybe in the 20s or 30s, and it was situated like overlooking the gorge of Rock Creek Park, which if you haven't been to DC, it's quite a bit lower than the rest of the ground level. It's a gorge. And there was some kind of cooling system in the building that actually would draw cooler air up from below.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
look at
that was what I wanted to.
It out.
Yeah. I mean, the basic principles are not difficult to understand, right?
It's amazing that termites are doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that it's such a complex system that they've managed to build.
Cool.
Sweet.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Victoria.
Well, that's what I have on that. And we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we will have something from Kirk.
So welcome back. You know, in a show about strange nature, it seems to me over the little over a year we're doing this show, there seem to be two wells we keep going back to. One of them is, of course, the depths of the ocean.
There's so many weird things there, Kirk.
So strange to us indeed. I know, it's wonderful, and we'll go back to it many, many times. The other, though, is a landmass full of years worth of strange topics. I know Rachel's a big fan. From echidnas to marsupials, and even bizarre endemic plants, Australia is the gift that keeps on giving.
So
Australia is a source of bizarre endemic plants and animals and whatnot. But and part of why it's so strange is because of its geology and and just where it is and how it's been cut off from the rest of the world. But this week, my topic does indeed come from Australia, but I'm not talking about a plant. I'm not talking about an animal. I'm actually going to focus on geology.
Oh, yay. I love geology.
Geology's fun.
I'm not going to talk about the geology of how the land shaped the evolution of those strange plants and animals, which we can talk about someday. But I want to tell a story where the geology itself has helped create one of the world's strangest, mysterious locations.
Okay.
All right.
So
color me
there's
intrigued.
an Aboriginal story about a man long ago who was building a fire on a mountainside when suddenly he was carried away deep into the earth by the evil one. And this man did not die, but he was trapped within the mountain. And he knew kind of what had happened. He wanted to warn others to keep away from this evil place. And he had been building a fire, so he had his fire stick with him. And so he decided to set the mountain ablaze from the inside.
Whoa,
he hoped that the smoke would warn others about the dangers of this mountain. And to this day, this mountain is named Wingen, which means fire. So my topic this week is Wingen Mountain, also known as the Burning Mountain.
Wow. How do you spell that?
Wingen. And this strange location has been known to Aboriginal people of Australia for quite some time. As near as I can figure, outsiders did not lay eyes upon this oddity until somewhere around 1928. But let me try to
Nice.
describe it to you as though you've just come upon it for the first time.
Yeah.
So the location is northern New South Wales. And for those not familiar with Australia, New South Wales is the southeasternmost chunk of the continent. It's also where Sydney is located.
Okay.
And the Burning Mountain is pretty much due north of Sydney. And so I was looking at a map and thinking, oh, that doesn't look that far. But Google Maps informed me that it would actually take over 16 hours to get there from Sydney. And I was blown away by like how much bigger
Yeah.
Australia must be than I was thinking.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And I
it's pretty
checked
large.
and it said that it's a 180-mile drive. And I'm like,
Oh.
wait, it doesn't add up until I realized that as a little confession time, I had Google Maps set to bicycle routes.
Yeah,
So
that would totally happen.
it takes 16 hours to ride your bike there. It's only like it's like a 3.5 hour drive.
Have fun
So
biking up
it's
the
not
mountain.
at all a bad
Kirk.
drive.
I'll see
I know.
you on bike. I'll wave at you from the car.
Yeah. You can take the car. It's only 3.5 hours. So this is also a total aside, but if you do decide to visit and you are in Australia, be sure to add to your route a stop at the world's largest statue of a blue heeler. Now, I have 2 dogs. As you know, they're both part cattle dog / heeler. And this statue is in celebration of the place where heelers were bred. And it's only 25 miles away from the Burning Mountain. So plan accordingly.
Right.
So as you're leaving Sydney, you're ascending up through several mountainous areas along the way. And Burning Mountain is nestled amongst many other mountains. So it's by no means unique in terms of its mountainness in the region. It's just one of many more mountains that looks like all the rest in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from a distance, perhaps. What has intrigued people for a long time, though, is the fact that this mountain seems to be on fire from within. When you approach the mountain, you notice that smoke rises up from within holes and cracks in the ground. You can feel the heat underneath you. Vegetation has been destroyed. The landscape looks barren and Mars-like, and the ground itself varies from like a tan to kind of a reddish color, and there's a smell of sulfur in the air. Now, with this description, you'd be tempted to think, oh, okay, well, I'm standing on a volcano. Right?
Yeah.
But look closely at the ground, and you will see no igneous rock underfoot. You are walking on ancient limestone.
There are no volcanoes in Australia, are
okay.
there?
Well, I mean, I know there were historically quite a long time ago. I do not know if there's any active volcanoes in Australia.
Yeah.
So limestone doesn't necessarily preclude volcanic activity. There are volcanoes that feed on limestone above as magma rises from below. They actually tend to be some of the most destructive volcanoes on Earth. So Vesuvius is an example. But here, as you look around, there is not any sign of any lava having ever been at the surface, right? So it's like, what's going on here? Is it just like a geological hot spot, that's never erupted? Or like, where's this heat all coming from?
Is
And
it
the
like
sulfur and
a
everything.
huge hydrothermal vent or something?
Right, that'd be a totally logical conclusion. Geologists studying Burning Mountain, though, have concluded that it is not a volcano. They have concluded that the smoke, heat, and sulfurous smell are 100% not related to volcanism in any way.
Okay.
Mysterious. So what's going on? Mount Winjin is the home to the longest burning coal seam fire
Oh my gosh.
in the world.
Oh.
Wow.
So coal
Okay.
forms underground in seams or beds. That's what you would be mining. You'd be mining out that coal seam.
Right.
And as we know, coal is quite famously flammable.
Flammable. Like
It's
we
also-
use it for,
Inflammable, because I was worried to mean the same thing. So that's the quality that's made it useful to humans. But once in a while, the coal can catch fire while it's still in the ground. Coal seam fires can be caused by lightning strikes, even just a brush fire. If the coal seam is exposed at the surface, it's quite easy for that fire to ignite the coal. Basically, if the coal is exposed and you have a heat source, it can catch fire. And the coal burning in Mount Winjin is now currently about 100 feet underground, is where they figured that it's actually burning. But it could have been closer to the ground in the area where it started burning. Right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
while
it's just
researching this,
burning
I was
its way
amazed to
down.
learn. Yeah, I was amazed to learn how common coal seam fires are. According to multiple sources I found, at any given time, there are over 1,000 coal seam fires active on Earth.
Wow.
And they contribute about 3% of the annual global CO2 in the atmosphere,
Gosh.
which is not great.
The only one I knew about was in Centralia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of them are the result of natural conditions, but many are mining accidents. Most of them will either burn out or are put out. But it turns out putting out a coal seam fire is really, really hard. These are smoldering fires. And if you try to dig down to where they're burning, you end up allowing oxygen in. And the fire quickly picks up pace and then races ahead of where you were digging before you can really get to it. So it becomes quite hard you can't just dig down and put it out. And you mentioned Centralia, Pennsylvania. That is the coal seam fire that's burning there proved impossible to put out. And it has caused now 2 towns to be completely abandoned at the cost of millions of dollars. They estimate the fire in Pennsylvania is probably going to burn for at least another 250 years.
Holy shnikes.
It's pretty wild. Coal seam fires sometimes go undetected, so it's hard to get an exact number on them, but researchers estimate there's currently probably 200 coal seam fires currently burning in the United States across 21 states.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild. I mean, like we know of I think about like 100 plus, but just by kind of doing the math and some figuring, they figure it's probably closer to 200, which is really wild. Some of them might be quite small, and you wouldn't really know about it. But Burning Mountain in Australia, though, has them all beat. It is currently spreading south at a rate of 3 feet per year. That's
fast,
it's not super fast,
but it's
right?
burning a lot.
But it's on the move. But so far, the fire has burned a 4-mile-long scar across the landscape.
Whoa.
And geologists estimate that it has been burning nonstop for 6,000 years.
What?
Making it the longest-running coal seam fire known on Earth.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So my sources this week about this was Atlas Obscura, Wikipedia, and a very interesting 1963 film called The Burning Mountain, which I'm not sure how accurate that was as a source, but there it was. So yeah, coal seam fires. I mean, maybe we'll need to talk about the Centralia fire sometime, because that's just, we could do a deep dive on that alone. It's a fascinating topic. Yeah, but if you are ever in Australia and look for something to check out, this has now become a tourist attraction, and it is actually a park you can go to.
That's cool. That's
very
awesome.
cool. Very hot.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh. Well, thanks everybody.
That's all I've got, you guys.
Oh, great.
I think that's all we all have.
All right.
I think so.
But it's so wonderful that everyone came to spend time with us today. We appreciate you.
We do.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening this week. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.